The Scream Kings are in no way responsible for any encounters with the paranormal, extraterrestrial abductions, eldritch insanity, hauntings, hexes, curses, demonic possessions, cryptozoological sightings, or any loss of sleep from listening to this podcast.
Hi, and welcome back to the Scream Kings podcast. I'm NJ Gallegos.
I'm Nathaniel Darkish.
This is Max George. Lizzy Borden took an axe and gave her podcast 40 whacks.
Woo!
Grab your axes, everyone. We're talking a fun one.
Hold on to your axe.
He's been waiting all podcasts to say that.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Minutes. Grueling minutes. So, yeah, today, this week, actually, we have a special guest. We have author, screenwriter, awesome badass, loves sharks, Shark Week. Do I say any more? It's Kevin Bachar. Yeah, I said it wrong, didn't I?
Yep.
Fuck. How about you say it, Nathaniel?
Backer.
Bachar.
Anyway.
Isn't it Bachar, Kevin?
Yes, it's Bachar. Yes, thank you.
He said...
Anyway.
Man, I am winning at the day today.
Right? We're both doing well. Anyway, it's Kevin Bachar.
Yay, Kevin. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys? Great being here.
Well, it's great having you. So, tell us a little bit about your yourself, your career. You know, we made some allusions to a couple of those things in that chaotic intro. But yeah, like, I mean, you know, you're an Emmy winner and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about your career.
Well, I'm a man of many name pronunciations, so right there off the bat.
Oh, go to hell.
I love that you said pronunciations.
Pronunciations. There you go.
Now we're all on equal footing.
Yeah, we're all good. So I'm a New York City guy. Still kind of live in the area on Long Island, born and raised, product of the New York City public school system. Shout out to PS13, IS61, and John Bound. Those are my grade school, middle school, and high school. And I think I'm a perfect example of don't ever let anybody tell you what you can or can't do, or thinking you can't do something because you were born here or this way or that way. Because I was, like I said, a product of New York City schools, apartment dweller all my life, and sort of decided I wanted to work at National Geographic and see the world, even though I lived in an apartment, and sort of followed that dream. And ended up becoming a producer, director, cinematographer, National Geographic.
And then won an Emmy.
Actually, not to be like a braggart, but I've won 3. So.
What?
Wow, you really can go to hell. Tell us about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I won 3 documentaries for my work at National Geographic. And that's documentaries. And so over the years, I've done everything from natural history, wildlife, historical, action adventure, whether sort of following the Iditarod race across Alaska, or as NJ alluded earlier, swimming with sharks off of Mexico or in the Caribbean. Kind of done it all.
Wow.
What a flex. My God.
I worked on a spreadsheet today, so it's on you.
Well, to be honest, that frightens me more than any other creature, animal, or anything in the world is an Excel spreadsheet. If you sort of like, you know, come up behind me and say Excel, I'll scream.
Okay. You take me on your next National Geographic tour. I will help you with your spreadsheets.
Okay, thank you.
I saw that one of the things that you had won for was a thing about the Lusitania, which is just like one of my favorite things to research, and so I just wanted to hear a little bit about that just out of my own, selfish curiosity.
Well, it was, it came after the Titanic, and it was a cruise ship that was sort of sunk, if I remember correctly, off the coast of Ireland by a U-boat submarine. And it's very different from Titanic, which is like, I think 10,000 feet or more down, or is it 5,000 feet? I forget, but it's in very deep water. Whereas the Lusitania is basically just sort of in 300 feet off of the coast. But same amount of tragedy, same amount of horror as the Titanic in many ways.
So what you're saying is a bunch of billionaires are not going to go into a little like PlayStation control operated submarine and go see that because it's kind of close to the surface.
That is supremely nuts. I've actually spent time with Bob Ballard, who discovered the Titanic. Been on a few shoots, did a few things with him. Extraordinary fellow. I mean, just incredible person. And he would just laugh at what they were doing. I mean, it was just insane. Basically cobbling together something like that to go that deep is just literally, the definition of insanity.
Yet they did it.
Yep. Hubris.
The memes were great though. Memes were top notch.
The memes were very fun.
Yeah, they were.
Oh my God.
I mean, lives were lost, so, but thanks for the memes.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty nuts too. It's sort of like, oh, they might still be alive. It's like, no, they weren't. Yeah.
No, that's not.
No, the ocean crushed them like, like a bug.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
If Godzilla can't handle the pressure in Godzilla -1, humans can't.
Yeah, if you can't stay that deep, if Godzilla can't stay that deep, what can?
Yeah, exactly.
So Kevin, what would you say started you out in horror? What's your origin story?
Oh I mean, as a kid, I loved horror. It's sort of, I think it's probably the same with the three of you as well. And just sort of like, I love that feeling. Is that line in, not to like quote Parenthood, the film, but it is that line in there where I think one of the characters once, says like, hey, you could either go on the merry-go-round, round and round, or you can go on the roller coaster. And a horror film is the roller coaster. It's like thrills and chills and, oh my God, and your heart starts pumping and you feel alive. And that's how I was watching horror films. I loved it. I loved being scared. And it was, started off with like Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula, and then sort of graduated to sort of the Hammer films and then Exorcist and so forth. But I loved them from the beginning. I don't know how you guys felt.
Yeah, I remember watching Unsolved Mysteries as a kid and Arachnophobia and, hiding under a blanket, but then peeking over it so you could still see what's going on. Yeah. Caught the horror bug.
What about you, NJ? What about you? What was your turn to the dark side?
Well, my mother, aka the Emperor, introduced me to quite a bit of horror as a young lass.
Did she sit you down and say, "Do it"?
Do it. Yes.
Lovely.
She turned Alien on and I was done. I was like, all right, she saved the cat. She killed the xenomorph. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Alien is, forget about it. That's one of my favorite.
As it should be.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually like the new one, too. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It was a hoot.
I'm surprised it didn't do as good as, I mean, it did okay, but I came out of it going like, this movie should be doing way better than it's doing. I mean, it was great.
I would say I'd put it like, you can't be Alien or Aliens in my opinion, but I would say it's number 3 for me.
That's exactly how I felt. The same thing. It was number 3 in that list.
Yeah, super, super good. So speaking of that, what would you say your favorite horror movie is?
Well, it's the film that kind of influenced me to sort of get into National Geographic and film sharks, and it's Jaws. And I know maybe there's a question whether Jaws is a horror film or not, but In my mind, it is. It's a terrifying movie. It scares probably more people each year than any other film. But Jaws is probably my favorite horror movie of all time.
That's a great movie too. I love Jaws.
I mean, do you consider it horror or not?
I would. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's on that list. Like, oh, is Silence of the Lambs horror? Is Jaws horror? It's sort of like, and in my mind, they both are. But I know some people don't think it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
think
I would say. I mean, if The Last Unicorn is horror in my opinion, I think Jaws is horror.
we'll never recover from The Last Unicorn.
That
We
tree
never
with
will.
the booze.
So then, Kevin, what would you say the scariest horror movie is? Your favorite is Jaws. What has scared you the most?
Scariest. Boy, I got a few. I mean, Hereditary.
Yes.
Oh my God. When like she comes running out of that corner. I don't want to
Yep.
like again spoil. I know we got allowed to spoil things, but when she comes running out of that corner at the end, or like when he's looking in his room and he sees the corner with the chair and he thinks it's the head and it's the. I mean, there are moments that just in that film. Conjuring, the first Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
The ending for me got a little too much, you know. But like up until there, when that thing's on top of the armoire and jumps down, I that scared the crap out of me. The Ring, which doesn't have like a lot of like jump scare moments, but in terms of tension and story, and when that kid Aiden says, "You saved her," I was like, "Oh shit! Oh no!"
So good.
Those are good choices.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's another movie I really like that I don't know if people know about. Session 9.
Oh, so fun.
Yes.
You guys know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's that movie doesn't have really any jump scares, but it has this thing called dread,
Yes.
where it's just this constant feeling of dread throughout the film. I named my first book Dread because of it, because it keeps you in this constant dread throughout, that you're just like tense throughout that film, and I love it. I love it because it keeps you in that suspended sort of dread moment.
Those
Yeah,
are wonderful picks. You passed the test.
Oh, good.
Well, you said Hereditary, so you
Yeah.
and Max are just like best friends for life now. Just go get necklaces.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
no,
probably
I,
talked about that movie more than any other movie on this podcast.
yeah, I really liked it. I didn't. I know some people did, but I didn't dig Midsommar as much. You know, I appreciated what he was trying to do. I liked his concept where he was like, horror movies happen all the time in the dark, and he was trying to do this sort of like, I want to create this horror in broad daylight. So I really sort of applaud that, but it didn't scare me like Hereditary.
Yeah, it wasn't as terrifying. I think it leaned in too much on the dread, especially coming out of the Hereditary awesomeness.
Yeah. Whereas Hereditary had some good grunge scare. I mean, grunge. I grudge, because I was thinking of the last Grudge movie, which actually I really like. It had a lot of jump scares, but that thing was scary.
Absolutely. So, kind of shifting a little bit to your involvement in horror. Tell us about kind of how you got into writing horror and kind of the breakaway from just doing stuff for Nat Geo.
It came about because it was about 10 years ago, and kind of everybody experiences this. There was a slow period of work, and so I was kind of waiting for, was pitching gigs, and in my business, sort of you're always pitching and trying to get people to give you money to make films, and I had a bit of a slow period of about 4 or 5 months, and it was sort of like, well, I could play Subway Surfer all the time, or while I'm sitting at my desk, or how could I make some good use of this time? And that's when I started writing sort of ideas for short stories and started writing screenplays, and sort of made that transition from documentary into sort of prose and screenwriting.
And then did you go from screenwriting then to writing like, short stories, novels, or?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I sort of started writing screenplays first because it seemed a little easier to me. There was, there is a difference. A screenplay is somewhere about 20,000 words, whereas a novel usually is around 230 to anywhere to like 700 or 1,000 pages if you're writing, the last Harry Potter books. But sort of about 20,000 words for a screenplay, whereas you're talking about 60,000 to, again, like 100,000 words for a novel. So it didn't seem as intimidating to start with screenplays.
Sure. Do you find one easier or?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, they're so different. I mean, if you've ever tried to write a screenplay, I mean, screenplays are very rigid in that there's this real blueprint of how it's supposed to be done. I mean, there's action lines, there's setting location lines. So when you write a screenplay, you start off with the location and the time of day, and it says, like interior, you put int, interior, house, day, and then you go with your action line. Then sort of like Cindy walks into the room, finds the couch, and plops onto it. And that's right. Now you start writing your dialogue, and the dialogue's in the center of the page. And Cindy says, "Hello, Bob," and then Bob walks into the room and says, "Hello, Cindy." It's a blueprint. It really is a blueprint for a film. Whereas writing a novel, you go anywhere and do anything you want. You could be I could know the inner thoughts of my character, whereas in a screenplay, you really can't do that unless you're doing voiceover, which is kind of frowned upon. But on the whole, a novel, you can go anywhere and tell me anything and push me anywhere at any point. So in many ways, writing prose in a novel or a short story is much more, there's more freedom to it.
Okay. So like a screenplay, screenwriting's like you're trimming the fat off of everything and just giving the psh.
Yeah. You're just giving the psh. Yeah, that's exactly
Yep. You're welcome.
That's exactly it. No, I mean, anybody who's listening to this, take a moment and Google, a screenplay for one of your favorite movies. Usually it's on the Google machine somewhere, and you'll see how it looks very different than any novel you've ever read.
Or read.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Thank
written.
you. I've been reading a book about screenwriting. I haven't gotten crazy far into it just because I do like the idea of like taking a story and adapting it to the screen, but I don't know a lot about it. So this has been interesting.
You know what? The best thing to do, because I didn't go to school for screenwriting. I didn't go to school for writing or anything. I mean, if you really want to write screenplays, the best thing to do is read screenplays. I mean, just read them and go, oh, this is how you do it. Oh, this is successful. Oh, follow this sort of, they've laid it out for me. I just have to follow this.
Ironically, I printed out Hereditary's screenplay. I have it to read.
I mean, it's not a horror film, but Taylor Sheridan's Hell and High Water, you read that and you go, oh, if that's the level bar, I got a way to go. But that's a perfect screenplay to download and read if you're ever interested.
What'd you say, Hell and High Water?
Yeah, it's Taylor Sheridan's Hell and High Water. His film Wind River is another one, and they read like prose, but they're screenplays and they're excellent.
All right, I'm writing that down. Thank
you go. No worries.
This is great because I'm a high school teacher, and so I just barely actually just read a script for The Crucible with my students, and you kind of had to go over a lot of these same kind of beats of like, okay, yeah, like we have to look at how it's formatted, how it's different, how some of them do have more prose, some of them are just bare bones. This person says this thing, this person says this other thing, no, stage directions or things like that. And so yeah, it's really interesting to see how different writers still have their unique style and all of that, but it can be greatly insightful and really interesting to look at that. That's great. I mean, are you going to watch the film then, Nathaniel? I mean, afterwards? Well, so we actually watched it first, and then we looked at the script.
Wow, it's a great film. It's a really great film.
Yeah, Yeah, and so that was really cool to then be able to go like, okay, like how does this text translate to the thing that we saw, and then like kind of rewatch certain scenes and stuff like that as well. So it was a cool experience with students, and I think they got a lot out of it, and then it was good for me to brush up on how to read a script and how to talk about a script, because yeah, that's not my usual wheelhouse. I'm a fiction writer, and usually I'm just thinking in terms of a novel, and so yeah, it was good to kind of go, oh yeah, like there's a lot of great ways to have stronger dialogue or have a lot of these things kind of incorporated into the writing that you kind of have to have, like the dialogue does so much more heavy lifting in a script.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% true.
So you should totally tell us about The Visitor.
The Visitor. Yeah, that's my first novel. And I'd written 3 short story collections and sort of said, hey, let me try to make a deeper dive on a story. Because my short stories, getting back to how long a short story could be, is anybody's ever written one. They could be anything from just a few words to 500 to 1,000 words to 10,000 words, 15,000 words. And again, the novel is then 60. And so I wrote The Visitor, which is a kind of a character study, but a bit of horror. And it's kind of, I look at it as sort of, it's Alien meets sort of Cabin Fever type of thing. And I know you've read it, and thank you for that, NJ. So is that a good description, kind of alien in a cabin sort of thing?
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. And the fact that this was the first novel that you had ever written.
Yeah.
Wow. Like it is very good.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind.
And like I said, so everybody, there's it follows Sally and then her dog. So her dog is named Maureen Bojangles, aka Mobo. So yes, thank you. But the second you introduced the dog, I was like, if Kevin fucking kills this dog, I'm gonna beat his absolute ass.
I swear to God, I've gotten a lot of people, and I think it was a mistake at the end putting the dog in there, because a lot of people said, I don't want to read it because I'm afraid the dog's gonna die.
Yeah, it's a big fear. I mean, we can watch people get hacked to death all day, but you put a dog in jeopardy, and that's a no-go.
It's so true. I mean, Sam Peckinpah, the great director who did The Wild Bunch, and he talked about that. He sort of said, I could show people getting killed and murdered and shot and full of bullet holes, but if I show one dog get shot, people will walk out of the theater.
Yeah, that's why the Does the Dog Die website exists.
Yeah.
I do not understand that. I am not an animal person, though. So
I know. And it's funny because I literally thought about putting like in, on Amazon, and in the beginning of the book, the dog doesn't die. But it's sort of like, well, you can't do that. I mean, it's sort
I don't
of
know.
like,
It's good marketing. It would be good marketing. I'd be like, okay, all right.
Yeah, see, you're exactly proving my point. You're right. I mean, the dog doesn't die. Oh, great. I'll read it then.
Exactly.
You should do that, but then kill the dog.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Who said that? What evil Max.
I mean, it could be like the John dies at the end, in which John doesn't die at the end, and
right,
it could
but
be
the
dog
opposite
doesn't die in this one, and the dog definitely dies.
But here's the thing, it's sort of, people ask like, oh, so how did you think of The Visitor? Like, how did it start as an idea? And it literally started with the name Maureen Bojangles. I was literally going to sleep, and that name popped into my head, and it was sort of like, Maureen Bojangles, what the hell kind of name is that? Why did you think of that name? And it was sort of like, well, that ain't a real name. That'd be like a name in a dog. That'd be like one of those, when you watch Westminster Kennel Club, and it's sort of like Maureen Bojangles, Jingles the Third. It's like, oh, well, that's what it'd be. It's a dog. But like, why are you thinking about a dog? And it's sort of like, well, it must be a special dog if you're thinking about it right before you go into bed. And it's sort of like, okay, well, what makes a dog special? Well, if it saved somebody, well, that's not that special. Dogs save people's lives all the time. It's like, oh, well, what if this dog's literally like saved the earth? Well, it's like, well, how would it do that? You know, it's like it's gonna like run and stop somebody from pushing the button at the end of the, you know, the red button to launch the nuclear codes. It's like, no, that wouldn't make sense. And it's sort of like, well, what if aliens? What if it sort of like was part of a stand against aliens? It's like, well, that might make sense, but and then it's sort of like, oh well, then I want to distill this into something small and sort of compact, and that's how The Visitor happened. It's sort of like World War Z, which I really like as a horror film. You know, you guys probably know the story. It was supposed to be a big battle at the end. You know, it was supposed to be this huge, and they shot it, but they ended up saying this really doesn't work. We've already seen so many of these big battles, and they condensed it then and rewrote it to that sort of like really condensed moment in the medical center, which worked tremendously well. And so I kind of thought of that and sort of like, well, how could we do that with an alien and a dog and a woman? And that's what happened with The Visitor.
Yeah. I enjoyed the plot. And I thought that taking a cabin that was already secluded and then just absolutely cutting her off from anything with the blizzard was very effective. Like you were talking about earlier, like the dread in this, you kept ramping it up. So well done. And The Visitor I found to be very off-putting and disgusting and terrifying. So I would love to see that translated to the big screen.
Well, thank you. I mean, I try to make it insect-like because if there's one thing I hate are bugs. I'll film snakes and sharks and lions and everything, but I hate like cockroaches. I hate bugs. They freak me out, you know? And so I made this sort of aliens kind of bug-like, which a lot of scientists feel they would be if we actually ever saw them, you know?
That's frightening. Excellent. Something for me to worry about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mimic is another favorite movie of mine, and that kind of was a little bit of an inspiration. I don't know if you guys ever seen Mimic.
Yes. The cockroaches that turn into humans.
Yeah, that one. It sounds silly, but it's pretty good.
No, it definitely makes sense in the context of the story too. So, gives me the ick. So,
yeah, and I tried to sort of like you mentioned the blizzard. I cutting them off, and if you've ever been in mountains and stuff, you really don't have cell service when you get to the mountains. You know that you really are blocked off. So I try to make it as realistic doing that cutoff thing. Because isolation is scary. Whenever you're alone and you don't think anybody's around, boy, your mind will go. It'll take off. Yep.
Yeah. Everybody, go buy The Visitor and read it. It's fantastic.
Oh my God, geez, you're the best. You're the best, NJ.
I do what I can,
She's fine.
Should I say Dr. NJ? You're a doctor, you know? It's like. Or are you like, you're going to throw me the Dr. Evil? I didn't go to, 8 years of evil medical school.
I do say that often. It's a good quote.
Yes, it is. But you're a doctor. Again, people probably know that already listening, but I mean, I bow down to you. Jeez, you're like the smartest person in the room, every room you walk into.
Well, thank you.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah. Nathaniel has met me in real life. I'm like an idiot savant.
And we have met spiritually, so that's
look at that.
Almost better.
There you go.
Definitely gayer.
Yes, definitely gayer.
So, should we tackle the movie you picked?
Sure, no worries.
So, first off, tell us why you picked this movie. Let the audience know.
I picked this movie because I wrote it.
We are flexing all over each other
I
in this
know,
episode, and I
know.
love it. I love it.
I did write a horror film that was released in 2022 through Lionsgate. It's actually available on Hulu and Prime and Apple Plus. So if you're interested in what we're going to be chatting about, definitely go, do a little streaming action and you can watch it.
Yeah.
We
Pause.
suggest that you do that now because we are going to spoil it. So
Yeah,
Right.
Go watch, and
And then come back and listen, right?
So, do you want to give us maybe like a quick plot rundown of the Inhabitant? Since we'll just dive straight into spoilers. Just kind of give us the big picture stuff, and then we can kind of dive into some different elements from there.
Yeah, sure. It's set in modern times, and it's about a teenage girl. You peg her at about sort of a junior or senior in high school. Her name's Tara, and she happens to be one of the descendants of a woman named Lizzy Borden. And to some of our audience, they might know who Lizzy Borden is, but to some others, they don't. But Lizzy Borden was a real person who was accused of murdering her stepmother and father with an axe, killing them both in a really brutal way. I mean, if you Google Lizzy Borden and then Google Lizzy Borden photos, even though this happened in 1892, it's pretty brutal. And so Tara lives with that sort of DNA, and she hits 17, and she starts having some visions and some terrible dreams about killing her own family. And soon a few murders show up in town, and she starts to question whether she's the murderer. And so we get some pretty brutal murders, and we try to find out who actually is committing these terrible axe murders in the town. And so that's The Inhabitant, which was originally called Blood Relative, then it became The Relative, and then The Inhabitant.
I will say I like Blood Relative better. It kind of connects thematically better, but
So did I. I did too. But I'm just the writer.
Yeah. What do you know?
yeah,
What do
they
I know?
definitely bulldoze some things like that when you're not at the helm.
Yep.
Fun fact that I looked into today about Lizzy Borden, just kind of researching for the episode, is she did go to trial, but the jury actually acquitted her of all charges. She went back to the house and then lived her days in the house. The neighborhood hated her, and she ended up dying of pneumonia, but she was never incarcerated or accused guilty for anything.
No, and it was like a jury of 12 men who, acquitted
Yeah.
her. It's sort of like, and here's the other cool thing. It's in the movie where Tara, trying to sort of find out exactly if it is the sort of the spirit of Lizzy Borden who's possessing her, goes back to the house where the crimes took place, which you can do. It's a bed and breakfast. I filmed there. You can go. Yeah, you can go there and stay in the rooms and sleep in her bedroom.
When I was watching the film, I was like, no way, this is real. And I Googled it, and I'm like, oh, damn, we have to go.
Yeah, that was
I'll
our
bring
text chain right afterwards was, we have to go to have a Scream Kings gathering at the Lizzy Borden house.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
bring
it's
my
like
Ouija board.
yeah, it's one of those things you're like, oh, that's made up. You can't really do that's insane. No, that's one of those things they make up in movies. It's like, I filmed there. You can do that.
Amazing. Did you feel any spooky ooky things while you were filming?
I did not feel any spooky ooky things. It was for the History Channel. It was called the Trial of Lizzy Borden, because we looked at the trial, which is, it's like a modern day OJ, where it's like all evidence pointed to her doing it. I mean, it was sort of, it's like she did it. There's no doubt. There's really nobody else who could have done it. But she was acquitted. And she was sort of, like you said, lived a bit like a pariah the rest of her time. I mean, there were questions of was she in cahoots? There was a maid named Maggie Sullivan who there were questions whether they worked together to do the murder. There was questions whether there was a lesbian relationship there. And that the father found out, and the stepmother found out, and so forth. So there's all this stuff going on. And it was also, he was quite wealthy for his time. Basically at that point, the dollars he had then was about 10 million, would have been like 10 million nowadays. I mean, not billionaire wealth, but hey, you could live really well on $10 million. So there were literal real sort of reasons why she would have done it, but she was acquitted. And so I did a documentary on this years ago, and I said, hey, I like to write horror. I had written an earlier horror film, which got some interest, but it was like set on a mountain and it was big storms and it would have been a lot more expensive to produce. And I literally went out and said, okay, let me write something that could be done fairly inexpensively, minimal sets, and see if I can get this sold. And I was able to.
Wow. You're really cool, honestly.
No, I'm just
seriously.
I just, I persevere. I don't let failure bother me. People say no. I mean, you know it. You're a writer, and you guys are writers. It's sort of you get told no 98.9% of the time. It's sort of, and it's sort of like either you let that get you down, or you say next. Okay, you said no. Well, let me find somebody who said yes. It's sort of. It's the key to life, and it's the key to anything. It's like perseverance. And I read that somewhere where somebody said, like, what makes success? And it's this word grit, and it's this sort of not giving up, not caring if what other people think about you, and always pushing forward. And that's what makes success more than anything. And so you guys do it too. You know what it's like.
Very true.
I'm gonna listen to this whenever I have to go do something hard. Be like, I'm gonna listen to Kevin's speech. Let's go.
But look, you went through medical school. How did you get through medical? How did you learn all that stuff? I mean, you persevered. I mean, I couldn't even imagine doing that.
It's a lot of caffeine, really.
Oh, see? No. I'm not.
Caffeine
I'm not
and
letting you
spikes.
do that. I'm not letting you do that. You worked your ass off, and you know it.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
So you do definitely think it was Lizzy then?
Yeah, I definitely do think it was Lizzy, having done the film and the research and so forth. I mean, everything pointed to her. I don't know why she was acquitted. There were a lot of mistakes. Again, it's so like OJ. There were a lot of mistakes. They didn't interview this person. They let the crime scene go. They didn't look for her clothes and this and that. I mean, there were all these things that the police should have done and they just screwed up, which happens today. Like John Benet Ramsey, the police forgot to do this. It's sort of like, it blows your mind that still happens today, but it does.
When the jury was like, a woman couldn't swing an axe. Next.
Yeah. Pray tell, she could not even lift the axe.
Oh my God, I always think of the end of Psycho. It's like, she wouldn't hurt a fly.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, since she was a woman in the 1800s, she needed a fainting couch between whacks of an axe. So
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I do declare.
A hit of
it's so hot.
Waterman.
Yeah. Oh my God. But I'm glad you guys got to look at it. It's sort of, I look at it and I go, because I see things on the edit room floor and things that weren't shot and go, oh, it could have been better and this and that. But, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it,
Yeah, let's kind of dive into a few of the things that we really enjoyed. Typically, we'll talk about what we enjoyed and then maybe a few things that we didn't enjoy.
Yeah, and look, you be honest and tell me what you didn't enjoy. Do not hold back. I am immune to criticism and feeling bad and letting it bother me. So you guys really lay it all on me.
Well, and I mean, I would love to hear some of your thoughts about some of the specifics of things that maybe didn't make it to the final cut of the movie that you had included that maybe caused you some frustrations, or going oh hey, maybe man, I wrote this killer scene that explained this thing and now it's kind of gone, and getting some of that insight will be helpful as well. So
sure.
Let's start kind of at the beginning. I think, NJ, you wrote this comment down, and I really resonated with it. Kind of the theme of generational trauma kind of going through the film. This curse of Lizzy Borden being passed to Tara. But I really kind of liked the spin that was taken here. Not only was it this curse, but also perhaps the substance abuse, mental illness. I think we as a people are really just tip of the iceberg of generational trauma. I think this film really touched on that very well.
When I liked how you tied in, Tara's this like very expert seamstress. She's very into fashion and making things, and then she learns that Lizzy also used to sew and make things like that. Like that really resonated with me because my grandfather, he was he did oil painting. He did a lot of Western like theme stuff. He kind of got me into like all of my art and whatnot. And so I really liked that there's this light to the darkness of this, mental illness, substance abuse. Is this a curse? What is it? But there's also good that comes from it as well.
Yeah, and thanks for the kind words. I wanted to keep the audience guessing. So yeah, is this a curse? Is this possession? Is it mental illness? And so I try to treat all of it sort of with the same gravity and with equal measures of sort of like, hey, this could be really it. So the mental illness, I had done research for a documentary on schizophrenia, so I incorporated real words in there and how it really comes about. And it does sometimes. First, you start to see it when people turn 16 or 17, and that's exactly Tara's age. And we found out her aunt had schizophrenia in the film, but it also could be sort of substance abuse, or it could be maybe really a possession. So I try to give that all equal weights. And yeah, the seamstress thing was something Lizzy Borden actually did do. And so you nailed it, NJ. That's exactly how I wanted it to come across, as sort of like, Lizzy Borden could have been this really evil person, but there were these parts of her that were good and people liked about her. And so sort of that duality of evil and goodness and so forth, trying to bring that all together. And hopefully that came through a little,
Yeah, absolutely. I liked that quite a bit.
Especially with the original title.
Yes, exactly. Oh man, you're killing me. You're killing me.
All right, what else did we like?
So I quite enjoyed the opening scene. I think someone else also mentioned that in our notes. Just that the cold open. The someone running and getting an axe to the face, if I remember right. That was that was a killer way to start a movie. Pun intended.
Yeah, and I wrote it, and this is, to me, the first. I really enjoyed the first 20 minutes of the film. And if you watch the film, it's sort of almost the first 10 minutes of the film. There's no dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
We go right. We see this moment of this woman waking up, and she's upset with her husband. We don't have any dialogue, but we could see that by she's left roses that's with a note like "I'm sorry," and then she throws the roses away. She goes for her jog, and she's just running around. We kind of get a sense it's Halloween, and she gets axed. And then we go right from that, and we meet Tara, but she's not talking. We see her on the field hockey, playing field hockey. And we see that she can get violent, and we could see that she's got sort of this kind of scary tendency. And then she's on the bus and she has this horrible nightmare. And so for the first 10 minutes or so of the film, there is no dialogue.
Yeah. And I liked how it did a good job of giving us, that symmetry between the violent act, another violent action on the field, all of that like really naturally mirrored each other without like having to be like, hey, there's similarities between what's happening here to what's happening here. Like it did it very subtly, very like it in a way that I felt like as a member of the audience, I'm like, oh, good, you like appreciate that I can like connect the dots, because some films just beat you over the head with that kind of thing, and I appreciated that this one didn't.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
I also thought Tara as a character was really developed as a whole. She was rough around the edges, but she really did have this kind of inner kindness that was able to come through the entire film. I thought she was a very realistic character. I didn't think at all of, oh, no one would really do this in real life, kind of a thing. And I feel
No, I was just gonna say thanks because I really tried to at the whole sort of like avoid cliches and make them real, and they would do things that seem realistic, you know.
And her poor best friend
Uh,
was stellar as well. It was Susie, I believe,
Yes.
let's see.
who did a phenomenal job in the Boys spinoff, Gen V, but she was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
she-
did great with that relationship. Like I felt the way Susie felt, you know, like you channeled that. Just
Well, the scene where she's cutting herself and then taking the blood and kind of in agony, ugh, that pulled at
Yeah.
my heartstrings quite a bit.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of God, I forget what movie it is. But it's God, and I'm not stealing this line. It's from a movie or something. But it talks. There's this line about how like, boy, you never have an intense love as it is in high school. You know that
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's like live or die, Romeo and Juliet. You like feel you'll never feel this way, and if that person doesn't know, it's the biggest crushing heartache. And so I try to channel that in there, you know, where it's sort of like you're never going to have that intense feeling anywhere else in your life, you know.
Yeah.
And to be
you
honest,
hit
I
it.
100% thought she was going to be the killer. So your art of distracting and red herrings took me by surprise. I did
Great.
not see that twist coming.
Great, because that was part of it was supposed to be a horror mystery. I was going for that. So is it the dad? Is it Tara? Is it a possession thing? Is it Susie?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. Like in the script, there were a little more things where we really like blood on Susie's sleeves and this and that. You got a little more of that and a little more of sort of like the dad maybe being it and stuff like that. And that's some of the stuff that fell on the cutting room floor. So it makes me happy to think that you thought it might be her.
And NJ, did you also think it was going to be Susie? I know you were caught off guard by the surprise as well.
I honestly thought it was gonna be Tara. Yeah, like
Ah.
I didn't see the twist coming at all.
The best character in the entire film, though, was Tara's little brother and how sassy he was. Loved him so much. I'm glad he didn't die.
He's like the dog. You can't kill the little boy.
I was just gonna say, see, people surviving is good too.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, and going back to Hereditary, that's why that movie totally caught you off guard when the
Yeah.
sister's head got, you know, when did you ever see that in a film before, you know?
Well, and the marketing for that too was so well done because the trailers and everything made you think it was gonna be about that girl, and then they said nope.
Nope. And then you're like, well, what the hell is this about? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Do you know how confusing that autopsy had to be? It had to be like, oh, she was having anaphylaxis. Oh, but nope, her head fell off.
Nerd.
Dr. Gallegos, paging Dr. Gallegos.
Yeah.
And I'm just eating a donut and examining the body with my bare hands like a pathologist.
And I'm seeing like
oh.
jelly coming out of your donut, splattering on the body.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, this was
Lick it
anaphylactic shock, but what else happened? As some jelly drips down on the body.
Exactly.
And then bugs come out of the head, and you know.
Oh, there you go.
Mm.
We got ourselves a little short story here. Let me write this down.
all the story is you in the autopsy room with donuts.
Yeah.
Eating a jelly donut.
I do have to give a shout out to Tara and her mom. That ending scene, Odessa Azion and Leslie Bibb, whoo, they were phenomenal. Really, really loved that ending scene with the two.
Oh,
of them.
great. I'm glad you did. You know, they're great actresses. I mean, Tara, Odessa, you've seen her in Hellraiser and a couple of other things since then. And the mom is Leslie Bibb, who was in everything. She played Ricky Bobby's wife, you know.
Popular. I used to love Popular.
Yeah, and then she was also had the small role in Iron Man, and she was in the movie Tag. And So you've all seen her numerous times, and they both brought it. And Dermot Mulroney plays the dad, and you kind of think maybe it could have been him, or maybe the aunt escaped. So the fact that you guys were surprised that it was the mom, that's great.
And I loved her in Hellraiser. I am a big Hellraiser boy, and I thought she did a great job in the new film.
Yeah. No, she got good. I know she got a lot of good reviews for that too.
I need to see that one still.
It's really good. You should totally see it.
And super sexy.
Yeah.
Super sexy.
Calm down.
It was the jelly donuts. It got my motors going.
There you go.
Anything else we want to talk about of what we loved about the film?
I did write down one line that made me guffaw, everyone. Whenever Tara was talking about her aunt who murdered her child,
Right.
and she says, "My killer aunt," starring Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah. That was great.
I
Thank
would
you.
watch the shit out of that movie. First
That's
off,
and I think that might have been a show on Lifetime.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
for
sure
sure.
it is.
I really, really wanted her to be played by Jennifer Love Hewitt because we hadn't seen the aunt yet on screen, and I was like, oh please, that would make that joke even better. But
Here's a little insight into filmmaking. So we shot this in Tulsa, and we shot that in Oklahoma, and you shoot in whether it's Oklahoma or Georgia, or a lot of films are shot in Louisiana or Ohio now and so forth. You shoot there because you get a tax break. So if you shoot in the state, you can get anywhere from whatever 10% to 30%. Sort of the budget paid by the state, and the idea is you're bringing in that amount of money or even more through the hotels and the food, and then you also have to hire a certain amount of locals, and so casting at a certain part is local. So the boy who played the brother is a local, and so some of those parts, like the aunt and so forth, were played by local actors and actresses. So I'm glad. I thought she did a really good job as the aunt. But so a lot of those actors you saw were local actors.
That's amazing. I kind of love that.
Yeah. Same thing with the crew. You're allowed a certain part of your crew, everything from your catering to your lighting people to your camera crew and so forth need to be local as well.
awesome. Yeah, and we got to benefit from that actually with Hereditary, because we got to talk to some people who worked on it, because it was all shot in Utah, and two of us are from Utah, so that made it a little easy to get in with people who worked on that. So that was fun.
Oh, so you do have that knowledge of that, and you know about that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to. I mean, that was 80 episodes, 90 episodes ago. So
Yeah.
it's good to get refreshers on that, because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember learning about this ever so slightly, and then my brain filed it away. So
Yeah.
All right, should we move over to things that perhaps we didn't love so much?
Go for it.
You're nervous, Kevin. I can feel it.
I wish I was.
We hated it. No.
I can start off. There were a lot of red herrings. Maybe just a couple too many. Just because I like when there started being like guilt being potentially cast or I guess directed at one person or another. At a certain point, I was just kind of like, I don't need another one of those. I felt like there were maybe a couple that were getting added too late in the film. That was like my one kind of big critique, is like, wow, there are a very high number of red herrings. I think most of them were very called for, but yeah, there was just a couple times I'm like, wait, now I'm supposed to think this person? I haven't even seen this person very much yet. So that was a little. That was my biggest critique. But I enjoyed most of the red herrings.
No, but that's a good critique, because it's always sort of like, where do you trust your audience, to fill in the gaps? And I think a lot of times, at least I know, I'll make the mistake of doing what you just said, maybe put too many in, because I'm thinking they're not getting it, or boy, I really have to hit this, and you do that a lot, whether it's dialogue. Oh, I really need to make Tara seem crazy or this or that. And sometimes I think you just need to trust your audience more. And I probably should have done that on this.
I didn't quite fully understand the hatred for the lacrosse rival. Was it Karen?
Yeah. Karen.
I felt like we were just supposed to hate her because Tara hated her, but it wasn't fully explained to me. So yeah, I'm sure there was more to that backstory and kind of that plot line, but maybe that got cut. Felt a little disjointed.
Yeah, there was a little more of her, in the original, and you cut stuff because of time and just sort of like, the feeling, oh, we don't really need this. But in the original, they fight on the field, and there's a little more back and forth between them and saying, we all know your family, you're crazy, so there's a little more of that, and there's a little more Mean Girls sort of going on there.
Gotcha.
But that stuff ends up on the cutting room floor. And again, not to make excuses, we also shot this during COVID. And we did have a COVID shutdown at one point. This was shot in November 2020, and it didn't come out till 2022 because we had to do reshoots with Dermot Mulroney, who plays the dad, because we got the COVID shutdown, and he had to leave. He was supposed to give us whatever it was, like 7 or 8 days on the set, and because we had the COVID shutdown, we only got like 3 days with him.
Ooh.
So we had to wait literally a year and a half till he was available to shoot with him again, because he had like grown a mustache for another role he had just done. Then he had a beard, and then he dyed his hair black, and so it was sort of like we could never get it until literally a year and a half after we shot with him was when we could shoot with him again.
That is exhausting.
Yeah, to get what we needed. So like all that stuff at the end where he's driving and racing to get to the house, that really wasn't in the original script. It was just sort of like, oh, the stuff that we were supposed to shoot, we couldn't get everybody back. We couldn't shoot at the house anymore. That was in Tulsa. So they shot that in LA. So a lot of that stuff, again, me critiquing my own film, the ending is to me very truncated, very fast. And part of it is we just didn't get to shoot what we wanted to shoot.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And
yeah.
I would say, considering that, it definitely came together with the ending much better than you would expect, considering all of the hoops that and challenges that you had to jump through. So
this has nothing to do with the writing or the plot itself. It's just, let me get my soapbox out 1 second.
Go for it.
So I'm kind of a demon guy. I am the occultist of the trio, and I am so sick and tired of the spooky ooky black eyes thing for demons. There's so many better ways to do it. So I saw that and I rolled my eyes, but that's because I'm on my soapbox.
Clearly it needs to be purple eyes.
I mean, you could do something like the Evil Dead remake, where the eyes are kind of the sickly, jaundiced yellow and red.
Yeah, I really like that. I did like that in Evil Dead. Boy, those eyes to me are even scarier. Yeah.
Yeah, but just the solid black. I saw it once in Supernatural. I think that's where it started. And because of the popularity of Supernatural, everybody does it now. I'm just over it.
Here's an interesting thing. All that was done in post-production. She wasn't wearing black contacts or anything. It was just one of those things. Yeah, that was all done in post-production. So
yeah, I always thought it was just like black contacts, right?
I think you could go that route, but this was done all in post.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me put my soapbox away. Wow, NJ. How about you?
I'll need to stand on it just to see over the fence here. Thanks.
Okay, you can use it. Here
thanks.
you go.
Thank you. So some of Tara's erratic behavior, like, she goes off with her best friend and kind of hooks up with her best friend, then she goes off with Carl or whatnot, and it almost seems like she kind of like forgets about both of them at points. I don't know. I wondered if that was like hinting at like multiple personality disorder, or if I was just kind of making that
No,
up.
no, that's a legitimate question and sort of critique. It's sort of I was trying to hint a little at that multiple personality that she might be going off in all these directions, but it was again also part of sort of things got cut. There was more of her with Susie and more of her with Carl, um, and so it became this sort of like you're with the executive producers, and it's sort of yeah we don't want an hour and 50-minute horror film. That's too long for a horror film. Horror film should be 95 minutes. And so,
No, that's bullshit.
I know.
Producers.
but that's how it goes sometimes.
Right.
So,
Sure.
Right.
Well, and she should have just picked Susie anyway. So I mean,
Agreed. Send Carl off to college and love Susie.
there you go.
so I wanted to ask, how did this project develop for you?
Well, that's we talked about it briefly before. Was that I it's like in Hollywood, what gets made a lot of the time and can get made cheaply is horror, and so a lot of times they say, you hear this all the time, don't try to chase a trend, don't try to write what you think they want, write what you believe in, and it's sort of like no, that's not going to sell. It's sort of you should try to. Here's an advice to every screenwriter out there: you want your best chance to get produced. Write a horror thriller that could be shot, under $5 million in limited sets, limited locations, and limited cast. You increase your chances of getting your film made 1,000% if you could do that. And so I was sort of, okay, let me write a horror film on something I know. And again, it's sort of like, okay, horror film with teenage leads do really well because that's still sort of the audience they're going for, even though I like horror. I'm older, you guys are older. But still that sort of Friday night, take your date, high school there, going out to that horror film is still the demographic they want. So it was like, okay, teenagers, yes. Horror, yes. Limited location, yes. Okay. Oh, I did this Lizzy Borden documentary once. That was really interesting. Maybe I could kind of work that in. And that's how it came about.
Bing, bang, boom. Now you're on the Scream Kings podcast.
There you go. Hey, that was my secret plan all along.
You have now peaked, and
we gotcha. Oh no, that's cool. Anything else we want to talk about before we rate this bitch?
Let's go.
Go for it.
All right, Kevin, so we do two different types of ratings. We have screams, which indicate how scary we think the film is on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being a Disney movie, 10 being Hereditary. And then crowns is how good the movie is. 1 being a DC movie, 10 being Hereditary.
wow, there's some shade being thrown at things.
Definite shade. Wow.
You all agree with me, don't you?
You mean like Green Lantern? Is that what you mean when you say DC movie?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah,
it
the
depends
second-
on the DC movie, my dude.
Yeah, I actually like
Okay.
Superman versus Batman. Call me stupid. I like that one.
Okay,
All right, let
now
me
we have
go-
a problem.
me-
Now you're throwing down.
Let me go get my Marvel Cinematic Universe binder and let's compare and contrast.
Yeah, see, no, next week I'm going to start teaching a DC Comics class for real. So,
Yeah. Any.
Do you know what DC stands for?
Detective Comics.
Boom! Give the man a doll.
Ooh, a doll.
Well, like when you go to the carnival, they give you the doll or the furry animal or whatever.
No, he gets an American Girl doll.
This-
Oh, man, I was going to give you a Raggedy Ann. Like the real Annabelle.
Annabelle. Give him Annabelle.
Yeah, the real one, the Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, right. Looks totally different.
Yeah.
So as far as screams go, I gave it a 5. I'm pretty desensitized to horror, so it kind of takes a lot to get to me, and there were some really good moments. I loved the kind of flashes of Lizzy Borden and kind of the gore that was going on, but overall I wasn't too scared. NJ?
I gave it a 7. there was a lot of that crying baby, which ratchets that up quite a bit for me. Like I'm kind of understanding there's a lot of sleeplessness and just tempers, so I get it. I found it to be an unsettling movie. The part that really creeped me out, that got to me, was how Tara was struggling. Like, am I losing my mind? Is this, is this a mental illness? Is this actually a curse? Like, not being in control of her faculties unnerved me quite a bit. And the axe, the scenes with the axe were pretty grisly. So that bumped it up to a 7. All of that did.
What is so gnarly about an axe? I've just had this thought. We have fantasy films with swords and everything. And they don't get you like an axe chop does.
Because have you ever swung an axe and like had it hit wood? I mean, it is
for sure. Yeah.
It's brutal. I mean, it takes off a chunk and it really hits and it just makes that sound. It's brutal.
And I think it's probably also just like people are more familiar with having swung an axe like that, right? Like, I think it's more just kind of a philosophical, what would it be like to swing a big heavy sword at somebody? But like, I think everyone has swung an axe, or at least way more people have swung an axe at a chunk of wood and went, oh man, that could go like straight into someone's head. So I don't know. I just feel like there's kind of a more universality in terms of just like more people have had an experience with it, and so then it's kind of more easy to connect that to like what that would actually be.
It's a more intimate weapon.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it's kind of unhinged. Like it's, like a knife or a sword, a gun, like you think of that as it would hurt somebody. Like that's what it's meant to do. It's more fucked up if you use something like a wood chipper, an axe, like things like that aren't meant for that.
Now, if someone comes swinging a wood chipper at me, sorry,
I will kick your ass, Nathaniel.
Hey, Evil Dead again. It happens.
I don't know if they swung it, but yeah.
Or Fargo, when you see the guy putting the foot in the wood chipper.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Or Tucker and Dale.
Ooh, Tucker and Dale. Yeah.
All great movies.
Kevin, what would you rate it as screams?
I go. Yeah, I go somewhere between a 6 and a 7. There's, like I said, I see parts of it where I wanted it to be. I wanted moments where we were just bringing out what we talked about earlier, that dread. When Susie's in the basement and she's going through that trunk, I wanted that scene to play out for another like a minute or so. I wanted to really build that up so that I always somebody once described it as like blowing up a balloon. When somebody's blowing it up, it's getting big, and you're like wondering like, oh shit, when's it gonna pop? And you just start to get tense. And I would have loved to have had a few more moments like that in the film. So I'd go between a 6 and a 7.
Fair.
Nathaniel?
I'm going to go with a 5 just because, yeah, I think the scares were mostly in the brutal kills for me. A lot of the other stuff, I think I've just overexposed myself to that kind of horror. But yeah, like I
don't want to know what you're exposing yourself to there. I mean,
don't yuck my
Cannibal Holocaust.
If you're exposing yourself, just keep it to yourself, okay?
Hey,
as
sometimes
teacher,
you just gotta live your life,
No, that's a fair assessment, Nathaniel. Totally.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, like, for me it's really just like, hey, I really like this kind of horror, and so I have thus maybe overdone it by watching way too many of the kind of the psychological, losing control sort of horror movies because I enjoy them so much. So I yeah.
I mean, we also run a horror movie podcast where we're watching so much horror content. It's hard to get under our skin sometimes.
Yeah, but still, it's sort of. I think it's a real fair assessment, and the fact that you watch a lot of horror. I don't think it. Horror is horror. Scary is scary. So, I think it's whether you watch a lot of it or a little of it, it still needs to scare you and get your heart pounding and make you jump and make you think. So whether you watch a lot or a little, it is what it is and how you feel.
And we keep coming back to it. So
exactly.
Right. As far as crowns go, I gave it a 6. I really enjoyed the film, Kevin. I am kind of the hard ass when it comes to crowns of the group. I would show this at a scary movie party. I thought it was great. I think every year we do a day-long horror movie marathon, and I'm adding it to our list on the rotation of movies. That was great.
Thank you.
NJ?
Gotta go with 7 again. Lesbians. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
That's why it's not higher for me. There were no gays.
Note to self: more lesbians in films.
Yeah, there you
more
go.
Gays, more gays.
Less straight, more gay.
There you go.
Perfect.
Words to live by.
I love murdery women. It's like my kink. I don't know. Don't shame me.
It's true. It's true.
It is. And I thought that just Tara's struggle and how you depicted her slowly descending into madness and then pulling back at the end, I thought it was fantastically done.
Oh, thank you.
I'm also going with a 6. Mostly, I think, for me, the other two did not see the twist coming. I actually did see the twist coming, but that's because I sit and pick apart stories, as a living, I guess. Being a high school English teacher. So,
right.
So I was just like, oh man, I wanted to be more surprised by the twist, but that's probably a me problem, honestly.
Oh, no, not a problem at all. That's exactly how you should feel.
When you're stepping back and kind of looking at the movie as a whole and kind of how well it realized your vision for this story, how would you rate it?
Great question. I think I'm in the same way. I'm sort of a 6 or 7. I think I lean towards a 7 just because I thought, and again, this is not because I wrote it. I thought everybody was great in it, but I thought Odessa and Susie, the actresses, Lizzy Broadway and Tara and Susie, Tara played by Odessa and Susie played by Lizzy Broadway. I thought they were phenomenal. I thought they were really good and above what you see in normal horror films in terms of the performances they gave and how realistic they were. And so to me, that's what elevated it. Just their performances were out of the park for me.
Yeah, they did such an amazing job. Again, that razor blade scene with Susie.
Yeah,
no
that's what I mean. Yeah, she really went there when she's alone in a room and stuff. And like I said, I don't, a lot of times in sort of horror films, teenage horror films, I just don't see that level of performance. And I thought they brought it in this one.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the last things that we typically do before we have you shamelessly, plug your work and share where people can find you is share how we've been staying spooky. So, what is another piece of horror media that you've consumed recently that's been on your mind? Anything along those lines. So I can go first on this. I have been kind of stewing over and obsessing over the new Marvel show Agatha All Along.
Imagine that, Marvel. Weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I did something worthwhile, but hey, there it was.
Ooh.
My fiance will fight you.
I love Marvel. I love DC, and there's gems and duds on both sides. I read so many comics and watch so many shows, but yeah, I'm really loving kind of the witchy side, the magic side of both universes. I feel like that's something that I've only kind of more recently been getting into. Reading, Scarlet Witch stuff. Agatha All Along is definitely checking a lot of the boxes that I want checked. and so I'm really really enjoying that. There's only 3 episodes so far, but it's giving me a fun viewing experience, and it doesn't hurt that Aubrey Plaza is delicious in it. And besides that, I've mostly just been doing some final edits on my book before my agent sends it out to a bunch of publishers, hopefully by the end of this week. So that's been eating up a lot of my time.
Woof, 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 yeah.
Congrats.
Let's go, NJ. How are you staying spooky?
Under the recommendation of my friend Kevin here, I finished Under Paris on Netflix, the shark movie, and I liked it quite a bit. The 2 main characters, first off, were like unbelievably attractive, so that was very nice. And I just love a good kind of disaster / creature feature. Yeah, they really should not have held that triathlon. Not at all.
Yeah, bad move when there's possible shark, great white shark in the river. Should have do it. You're right.
It was a bad move. Maybe a little bit more money than it would have cost to just, cancel it, but who am I? And I am currently reading the Mindhunter book by John E. Douglas. It's the same book that the Netflix series is based on. I'm on a big serial killer kick, so.
Is it good? Are you liking it so far?
I like it a lot. Yeah, it's a bit detail-y, but I like that. Like I will read anything like that. It's interesting to find out how they profiled these killers and they talk through all of that.
He's the guy. If you watch Silence of the Lambs, the Scott Glenn character is basically John Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
crazy interesting.
I just finished a book about Charles Manson, and I'm always in a serial killer kick, so I might have to check that out.
Which Manson book?
I knew you were gonna ask, and now it just left my head. Helter Skelter.
Oh.
Yes, that's a good one.
I should have known that. That was an easy title to forget.
That one didn't grab me for whatever reason. I mean,
it's long, but it's good.
I mean,
and it's very clinical. It's like a real sort of like play-by-play of what happened.
Yeah, I guess it was just like the writing style really is what threw me out more than anything else. That was definitely written by someone who was a cop, not a writer.
Yeah, I think he was the prosecutor, Buglosi, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying a ghostwriter wouldn't have hurt having someone in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how are you sticking spooky, Nathaniel? Oh, wait, we already did you. Fuck.
Ha, Max.
Me. I watched a very good film. It has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes a few weeks ago called Oddity. It is about this blind medium who can kind of see visions of the future and the past by touching a personal object of someone's. And it had some really twisted and spooky moments. The dread was really well done, and the ending will devastate you. Highly recommend it. You can watch it on Prime. You have to rent it for like $5 or something.
That's the one that has like the weird like tree-looking dude, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That thing.
It is also on the list for our horror movie marathon.
Hell yeah! I've been wanting to watch that one.
I also just started before we recorded that new FX show, Grotesquerie.
Oh yeah, how is that?
I have really enjoyed it. It's giving quite a bit of like religious horror, which is my jam.
Mm-hmm.
So really into that. I like the characters. It's another Ryan Murphy show, so
Jesus.
I'm waiting for the dicks to come out, which I won't be mad about, but I will be mad about how it takes away from the plot. So we'll see how it goes.
God, he's got like 3 series or 4 series going. It's like crazy.
Yeah, man doesn't sleep.
And it's crazy how he became the horror guy. I mean, it's like Mr. Glee becomes Mr. Horror.
That wasn't even a good horror show. I said it.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh.
I won't even say he's Mr. Horror. We have a love-hate relationship, me and Mr. Murphy, so we'll leave it at that. I'm really enjoying it. The first 2 episodes, it comes out every Thursday on Hulu as well.
So, Kevin, how have you been staying spooky?
I saw a Clown, which is a John Watts film.
It's a great film.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's sort of, people don't realize the guy who did, the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, which are, to me, I really love those films. I think they're great.
Is this the one where the guy, he puts on the clown suit? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
it's just
basically
very deranged.
Yeah, and he can't get it off, and it ends up being sort of this Norse evil god, but it's a deranged film, and to think that's John Watts, who like I said did the Spider-Mans, is just you can't connect the dots. I mean, you're like, who did that? But what's crazy is like he did that small budget film Clowns like 10 years ago, and he just did those Spider-Mans, and he just did that new Brad Pitt, George Clooney thing that's on Apple or whatever, Wolves and stuff. So it's like, again, people always sort of kind of downplay horror and this and that, but so many directors and writers and so forth got their start in horror, whether it's Francis Ford Coppola or Martin Scorsese or any of them. They all start in horror.
That's because it's the best.
Yeah.
So macho.
Yeah. Kevin, please shamelessly plug all of your social medias. Where can people find your book? Where can they stalk you and send you body parts in the mail? Yeah, no, don't do that, please. I get enough of that, please. Okay, yeah.
I got a freezer full already. No need.
You're ruining my weekend.
Yeah,
I was
thanks.
going to send you all sorts of weird body parts.
No, please, no. Let's see. Just if you just Google me, Kevin Bachar, Bachar. I got a pretty big web presence because of doing all the documentaries and the films and stuff. But you could also go to www.kevinbachar.com or just plug my name into Amazon and you'll see my short story collections, The Visitor, and my new book is available end of October called The Crone, which is witch based, and it's based on a real witch, Alice Young. A lot of people don't know, 30 years before Salem witch trials, there were witch trials in Connecticut, and we killed a bunch of witches then. And so it uses that historical record to give a kind of cool, spooky witch story. Alice Young, if you Google, you'll find her. She was real.
I will be reading that.
Yeah,
I can just hear Max's boner right now.
Jesus. Wait.
Hello.
Sorry, I have to tuck it up behind my belt.
There you go. Yeah, that comes out August 30th, right the day before Halloween. And like I said, it's based on a real witch. So,
which is incidentally also when Max's boner comes out.
It's true. You all laugh, but I am hosting a witch night tomorrow and actually setting up my own coven. So this is perfect.
There you go. Yeah, check it out if you want.
Heck yes. Okay. Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure having you. We'll definitely have to have you back, maybe to talk witchy stuff in a new, different direction. Pretty soon, because The Crown sounds rad. But yeah, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Max, Nathaniel, and Dr. NJ there. You guys have been really a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the time you've given me to talk about my work and horror. You guys are great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, everybody, stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.